Hey everyone, Jonathan Bailor back. Today's show is going to be a fun one. Hopefully leave you smiling. Hopefully leaving with you with a bunch of good stuff to think about because we have quite the woman with us. It's almost as if she was Superwoman because she is a TV show host, best-selling author, chef, a multi-award-winning nutritionist. In fact, she received the National Health Activist Award for 2012 in Canada, which means from a board of her peers, she was selected as the most influential health person in the entire country of Canada for the year of 2012, which is pretty awesome. You've seen her on the Dr. Oz show. She is not a big fan of gluten, and I'm a big fan of her. Her name is Kathy Smart. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's so great to be here.
Well, Kathy, one thing that I love about you and that we share is a deep passion for helping people to live healthier lives. Can you tell me a bit about your story and what led you to develop such passion for this?
Absolutely. It actually started when I was 12, which is quite young. I'm 35 now, and my parents were ministers and missionaries. So I was brought up with this mentality of always giving back, and you're on this earth for a reason to help others. So when I was 12, I went to see a naturopathic doctor because I was a very sick child, and Dr. Don Warren was his name. And that was back when naturopathic doctors weren't really recognized, and people are like, oh my God, what's that? And he actually diagnosed me with something called celiac disease. And so at 12 years of age, when I made the connection between food and how if you change what you eat, you can change your life, because I went from a child who was, bedridden and closed up in her bedroom to a girl within just a couple days of eliminating some food allergies to vivacious and happy and just myself. So that really at a young age inspired me, like, okay, this is why I'm on earth. This is what I'm here for. So it started way back then.
Kathy, what are your thoughts on? I have a story similar to yours, not in the sense of being a sick child, but having a definite moment when I realized just how impactful what I put in my body can be to how I live my life. And I'm just curious, Kathy, what are your thoughts on? We know, for example, if we put bad thoughts into our mind, that makes us sad. Like, that's just common sense. People understand that the inputs into your mind can drive your mental health. But it seems like even in the brilliant modern culture we live in, where we have all this technology, the seemingly commonsensical statement that what you put into your body influences how your body feels, just like what you put into your mind influences how your mind feels, is something that is not just accepted as obvious yet. Why is that?
That's a really good question. I really think it's just a matter of people not making that connection and not having that paradigm shift in their mind and that personal revelation. And I think it's also, too, lack of education. I also believe it's education of people who have different interests in mind. For example, in Canada, we'll have specific, health checks of products of a check that's bought, and the product isn't healthy at all. So it's unfortunate because, all the commercials and all the fancy food packaging, people are thinking, oh, this is good for me, Quaker Oats, and it's full of whole grains, not realizing there's so much sugar in the product and it's very refined. So I think it's a couple of things: people not making the connection, not having that revelation, lack of education, and or education of the wrong people with different agendas in their mind, like money.
It's definitely a fair point. I think you really nailed it there, Kathy. And one thing you said that I jotted down and circled here because it really resonated with me is you used the phrase, we go through this thought process of, is this product healthy? And it's interesting how even in that question, we might be able to unpack the core problem here, which is, like, let's think about that. Is this product healthy?
Exactly. And the thing is, like, a fresh apple and almonds and, fresh organic eggs, they don't come with a package. Right? It isn't a product, it's food. So people have thought that products are food, when it's not necessarily the case. Not to say there aren't some good items out there that are, very little processing and as close to nature as possible. However, people get really sucked in, especially in the last 50 years, to all the fancy packaging labels, like all the great commercials, and Mr. Athlete here eats this for breakfast, apparently this must be good for me. So we get really caught up in the smoke and the mirrors of what food is.
And it's those key criteria. It's brilliant, but it's sad when you look at it from a marketing and business perspective, because it's like the more levers and switches and labels we give people, in some ways it's like we're expanding their tool chest to deceive us. Like we say vitamin C is good for us, and now it's like here's soda that has vitamin C in it, so clearly it's good for you.
And it's actually really sad, and it's so funny. Like, when I see people for nutrition or I give a talk, one of the common things that I always hear back, or even about my cookbook, is, I can't believe how simple it is. And it's really interesting how in life, as we've become smarter in some things, we've almost become a little dumber in other areas, because really things like eating should be the most simple thing ever. Things like breathing, things like moving. But, man has taken it, packaged it, and tried to sell it and make money. And the common denominator is it comes down, unfortunately, to money. Companies jumping on board and saying, woohoo, this orange juice has omega-3 fatty acids in it. Well, people aren't going to realize at the same time they're going to be ingesting 10 teaspoons of sugar and getting maybe a drop of omega-3. So it's really quite fascinating. And I often will tell people, I'll tell you exactly how to eat healthy. When you sit down, think and look at your food and say, is this as close to nature as possible?
That rule right there, I think, really, really sums it up, Kathy. And that I think that's a good example of, you say your URL, your website where folks can learn more about you is a great message in and of itself. livethesmartway.com. And we're at the Smarter Science Slim. We're all about that as well. And it hits on your point of, while we've gotten smarter at certain things, it seems that maybe we haven't at everything. And it's really interesting, Kathy, because maybe it's because modern life has become so complicated that we just assume that everything has to be complicated, and eating doesn't have to be, right?
Oh my gosh, eating healthy is the easiest thing. It truly is. Like nature's, original fast food is fresh fruit or fresh vegetables. It couldn't be easier now, even in grocery stores. We have fruit platters that are already cut up for us, and veggie platters that are already cut up for us. And I often tell, moms that are working full time and have 3 kids, or fathers that are working full time, or families. Buy yourself a fruit and veggie tray, open up a Ziploc bag and fill it each day, grab a bag of nuts, throw it in. That's even faster than, stopping at McDonald's or Burger King, and so much better for you. It really is so simple.
And it is more cost effective too, Kathy. Going to McDonald's is not inexpensive. You're going to drop $5 to $10 on one eating occasion that isn't even going to satisfy you, so you're going to need to do it again in 2 to 3 hours, right?
Absolutely. And we look at it, even just the cost, in the moment, let's say, $10. But what about that cost on your health, right? It's going to throw off your blood sugar. You're going to want to have a candy bar later on. You're going to need a cup of coffee, perhaps, and there's another few dollars. One of the things I find when people switch to my way of eating, they're like, I can't believe how good, number one, I can't believe how good I feel. I didn't know I could feel this good. Number 2, I have so much energy. And number 3, I'm not craving the garbage. So when you feed your body what it needs, you naturally will not want those foods. You naturally just, your body's happy.
It's so true, Kathy. And I don't mean to get dark, but in some ways it's similar to. This is a little dark, but no one who's no one who's never smoked a cigarette is sitting down right now saying, "Oh my God, I really want a cigarette. Like, I wish I could just have a cigarette." Like, if you do
Yeah.
not have that addiction, you're not going to sit there and crave it. And what we're seeing now demonstrated clinically is that these edible products create similar styles of addiction. So just like someone who is not addicted to cigarettes does not crave them, I can tell you, and Kathy, it sounds like you're saying the same thing. If you just eat real food, give it some time, and you will not crave these edible products anymore.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And even to take it a step further, I think that one day we're going to see a lot of these packaged foods and genetically modified foods and things that we think are foods. We're going to look at it the way that we look at smoking now. Because when smoking was first introduced, doctors are like, woo-hoo, it's healthy for you, right? Like if you look back to the commercials, and it wouldn't surprise me, we sit down with our grandkids one day and look back and be like, can you believe that they actually sold that as food at one point? One of the funny things I like to tell clients, and I got this from Michael Pollan, love that guy, and he said, never eat a food that your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. So, like these little yogurt tubes and all, it just fascinates me. When you go in the grocery store and you look in all those middle aisles, a lot of those foods were designed to last for 10 years. That's just not good for you.
And even calling them food, I mean, I don't want to geek out too much here, Kathy, but I love what you said about looking at this like cigarettes, because at the end of the day, like, we don't call morphine, which is an addictive substance. It's an opiate, and it triggers the same receptors in the brain as refined sugar does, so it's a good comparison, and that's been demonstrated at laboratories all across the country. We do not consider morphine a quote-unquote food because it doesn't have calories in it. But it's a chemical that causes a change in the brain and the body, and it does not have calories in it. So when we look at these manufactured edible products, they cause changes in our brain and biology chemistry, and they do have calories. So, like, is the only difference between a drug and these edible products that one has calories and the other doesn't, because they share similar characteristics otherwise?
That's a really good point, Jonathan. I like that. And my brain just had a mind like, whoa, that's awesome. My mind just kind of exploded. That's a really good way to look at it. And actually, too, if you think about it, there are some foods, like a lot of these 0-calorie, 0-point foods, a lot of them don't have any calories. And when you think about it, the foods with aspartame and sucralose, you're right. They do have a drug-like effect. I need to journal about this. This is really good stuff.
Kathy, no, certainly. I mean, we should continue to talk about this, because I think it's a really big issue. Because also, let's think about this very serious subject of quote unquote emotional eating, and folks know that I think we all emotionally eat, and that we're just people, so our emotions drive really everything we do. But we're talking about abusive or unhealthy emotional eating, and the reason we eat emotionally to geek out biologically, right, is because food is one of the easiest ways to temporarily change the way we feel. And
oh my gosh, absolutely.
So why do people use drugs? To temporarily change the way they feel.
Yes,
That's why people use alcohol. That's why any substance that changes your biology and your psychology in the moment is behaving in a drug-like fashion. No?
Absolutely. That's a really good point. I like that.
And it's not to say, so to be very clear, if you eat organic grass-fed beef and kale, it will also change your mental state and your body state, but it will do so in a healthy, in a growth facilitating way rather than in a destructive way. So just like there's eustress and de-stress, there's positive drug-like effects that food can have on us and negative effects that edible products have, right?
Absolutely. And it's really shameful when you think about it that these big corporations are calling these items food when they do have addictive properties to it. Kind of like how with cigarettes, they would, make a cigarette as efficient as possible of delivering nicotine so people could get addicted. Many of these food manufacturers make these foods unbelievably addictive and full of additives and chemicals and preservatives to make people addicted to it. It's kind of freaky when you think about it.
Oh, totally, and it's freaky, and it's actually, for me, it gets me really excited. Like I know it gets you excited because a lot of times, so I'm not a vegetarian. I have nothing against vegetarianism. I think you can be wonderfully healthy and be a vegetarian. But the thing that I love about vegetarians is they're able to live a way that most people think would be very difficult, and they do so relatively easily because they have a deeper motive besides like just being skinny or just and if we can start saying these edible products are basically like drugs and cigarettes, and just like you wouldn't give your kids or yourself morphine, giving them refined sugar does the same thing to their brain as low dose morphine does. We can
Absolutely.
now it's a lot easier to avoid those foods now, right?
For sure it is, because it's that deep reason, that deep passion, and I think that would help people to make those choices that will be better for their child. Like there are more and more children that are being diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, autism. Like even just with our children, like I think of the generation that's growing up, and it's actually kind of frightening when I look at what people put in their lunch bags. Right, and I'm not criticizing the moms because they're tired and exhausted. They've been working all day, but they think, oh, these Lunchables are good for my child. It says it has calcium in it and X, Y, Z. So I really think a movement needs to start. And it's funny, I was talking with a client. She's like, Kathy, you have started a smart movement. I said, really? She goes, absolutely. People are thinking twice about what they eat. And it's true. I like what you said about that. Like with vegetarians, there's like a moral reason. If people kind of made that connection, I think they would make those healthier purchases.
Well, speaking of making a connection, Kathy, one thing I know you started talking about recently that really has made a connection with a lot of people is your experience, and I hope you don't mind sharing this here, with eating disorders and disordered eating. And I always find it to be an interesting topic because certainly it's wonderful to talk about food and to think about food, but sometimes we can think about food too much, and that can become a disorder. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So I've been in the fitness industry, actually. So I started, I'm a certified fitness trainer. I don't really go, I actually left the fitness industry because I actually think it's one of the most unhealthy industries out there. I know that's really sad to say, but it is true. And one of the main reasons is this distorted image and sense that is given out of what health is. And oftentimes that will be a man and a woman at this, ridiculous low body fat percentage, showing these picture ads saying, be fit, make the choice, be healthy. And the sad part is, in order for those people to have gotten to that low body fat percentage, they've had to do some very, very unhealthy things. And so an individual, even myself, would look at that and think, oh, I need to look like that. So you do anything and everything to be like that. And even my own personal experience, you almost get caught up in it. You don't even realize that you're doing it. And food doesn't just become food anymore. It becomes a way to become something that you're not and not naturally designed to be. And it's interesting. I was just talking with a client yesterday, and she was in my office just bawling because she's been exercising and eating healthy, and her trainer was like, you need to lose more body fat. You need to get down to 21%. And this female, she physically cannot unless she would starve herself. And I really think, in the message that I even have on my website, we are perfectly imperfect as humans. We are going to have a little bit of fat on us. That does not mean you're unhealthy. And I often tell women now, exercise to feel good, not just to look good. Focus on what you can do, not on how you look. And, I'm speaking at an international fitness conference, actually, in Toronto. Jillian Michaels is going to be there. And I'm going to hit some pretty hard subjects with a lot of the fitness professionals because I've struggled myself with eating disorders, and I know what can happen to a person's psyche when they see this image of health when it's airbrushed, it's touched. Oh, I'm getting all hot when I think about it because it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's really wrong.
Kathy, you are spot on that it is wrong, I believe, not only from a moral perspective and from just a social responsibility perspective, but even deeper, it is wrong from a physiological perspective. We know, and it's non-controversial, that there's three basic body types: endomorph, ectomorph, and mesomorph. And to tell someone, and again, just for the listeners, ectomorph is generally taller and thinner, mesomorph is in the middle, endomorph is generally a little bit stockier. To tell an endomorph that they can or should or need to become an ectomorph is just not. It's as if we're telling someone, just be 3 inches taller. What's your problem? Like, go.
Exactly.
It's not. And once we get that, once we understand that, the absurdity becomes quite clear.
Absolutely, and I'll take it even to animals. So I'm a huge animal lover, and I love dogs. And when you look at the different dog types, so you have a greyhound dog, you have a pit bull, and you have a golden retriever. Oftentimes in the fitness industry, people are telling a pit bull type of build to look like a greyhound. Mm-hmm. It's impossible. So this pit bull kind of person, a stockier person, will starve themselves, will purge themselves, will exercise, burn out their adrenal glands, dehydrate themselves to look like something they were never designed to look like. Mm-hmm. It's so wrong. And as a society, our perception of beauty is so perverted. Because if you go, I watched this wonderful video about this woman who's an African woman, and the interviewer said to her, do you ever want to be skinnier? And she goes, what do you mean, skinnier? She goes, well, your legs. She goes, these legs are strong. These legs are beautiful. She goes, do you ever look at a tree and say, I wish that tree was bigger or skinnier? She goes, we need to accept the way we are. And it's so true. It comes down to just accepting who God made you to be.
I love it. I've got a little chills going on here. Got a little chills on my shoulders to get the chills to go away. And Kathy, I want to ask you a question. So I'm a man and you're a woman. So just to clear the air for anyone who may. Yes. So I have a question for you. So because we talk about how the perverted sense of beauty that we have in Western culture, and one perversion I've noticed is I've yet to ever meet a man, and I try to hang around good, high quality people, who says to me, Jonathan, look at the ribs on that woman. Man, that's really attractive. I really like that. But it seems like sometimes it's not necessarily males who are saying we want really, really, really stick-like figures. We actually like curves, and that's what makes a woman look different from a man. And
absolutely.
So, but who is creating this pressure then? Because at least in my circle of friends, we like women that look like women.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that. Like, even my husband, when I had put on a couple, we've been married 11 years, so I had put on, of course, a couple of pounds as you get older. And he's like, I actually really like it. I love the soft curves. I love that. And you're absolutely right. And to answer your question, I think it's a lot. It's the media. And I also think that sometimes, it's interesting you brought this up. I was on a panel at Ryerson University. I'm part of a board for healthy women's body images in the media. And we were talking exactly about that, like who is creating these images. And oftentimes what happens is in the media, they're kind of in their own little bubble. Mm. So it's kind of a machine that started, and they think that people just anticipate this. And one of the professors at Ryerson, who's the head of the style industry, he was speaking out and saying, we need to show more diversity, even not just even in weight, but even in different races, different cultures. Because when you look at advertisements, it's typically a very waif, thin, white female, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what about, our African Americans? What about our Native Americans? What about, our South Asian cultures? All of those things, because each culture also does have a different body type. If you've ever noticed that, it's really interesting when you look at different cultures, many of them have different body types. And I think it's really from the media that this is happening. But the cool thing is the way to change it is for people to speak out. And I also think that people that maybe don't fit the quote-unquote mold of perfection need to start standing out, need to start speaking out. And that's one of the reasons I did. And also, they need to start embracing who they are. So what I mean by that is, eat healthy, move healthy, eat smart, move smart, but also accentuate those beautiful parts. Like, personally, I have a really tiny waist, so I went and I spoke with, she's an image consultant. Why don't I, play up the parts that God has given me? And so I think a lot of women need to, look at your best attribute and love it. Or men, they have great biceps. Start, really focusing on the awesome things that you have instead of trying to change the things you don't like.
Yeah, I love what you said, Kathy, about there's a couple things. One, this don't try to be perfect, and of course that presupposes that there is a perfect look for any of us, and I think that in and of itself is an interesting thing to discuss, because I think what you said, maybe I just jotted this down. Tell me what you think about it. Is find your perfection, not the perfection, but your perfection.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because we all have a healthy body weight. Like, I often tell people, start eating healthier, moving healthier, and healthy weight loss is a side effect of that. You don't lose weight first and then become healthy, because you and I both know if we didn't eat for 2 weeks, we could drop weight, sure. But is that healthy and sustainable? God, no. So, yes, find a weight that you feel good at. Or maybe not a weight, maybe a size. Actually, when I speak, I tell women, scales are for fish.
I love it. Exactly. Yes.
Draw out your scale. It is all that is a measure of gravity's pull on your body. It doesn't tell you, how much muscle you have, how healthy your heart is, what your resting. It's quite ridiculous, really. I think as a society that we weigh ourselves it blows my mind.
Well, it reminds me of a short parable, Kathy. I'm curious to know what you think about this. And the parable, I'll make it as quick as possible, is there's a woman out for a jog, and she ends up, her contact lens falls out of her eye. And another woman, who's an older woman who's just sitting on a bench in a park, the first woman was running in, sees the jogging woman stop, and she sees her walk towards a street light and to start digging around as if she's looking for something. And the older woman who's on the bench comes over to the woman whose contact fell out and is now under the street light looking for her contact lens. And she says, "Ma'am, you're holding your eyeball and you're looking around on the ground, and I noticed you stopped jogging. Can I help you find your contact lens?" And the jogging woman is like, "Oh, yes, thank you, ma'am. I really appreciate that." And the older woman who came over says, "Okay, great. Well, where did your contact lens fall out?" And the woman who is looking under the street light points about 10 feet back and says, "My contact lens fell out back there." And the older woman is quite confused. She thinks maybe she missed something. And she says, well, ma'am, why are you looking over here?" And she looks at the older woman and she says, "Well, the light is better."
Oh, my gosh.
And when you think about our scales, right, it's really easy to weigh yourself. The light is better over here, but aren't we just looking in the wrong place?
Absolutely, we are. I really like that. We absolutely are. We are looking, and that's really cool. We're looking in the wrong place. As you know, I'm sure one of the healthier places to look is take your waist circumference. That would, because many people will need something to measure. All right, measure your waist circumference at your belly button. For women, 35 inches and under. Men, 40 inches and under. Studies have shown, decreased heart disease risk, decreased high blood pressure risk, all those things. Focus on those types of measurements as opposed to, oh, I'm 150 pounds and this chart that's outdated in my doctor's office said I should be 120 pounds.
Absolutely. And not only does that make sense from a common sense perspective, not only are you spot on that it's better from a health perspective, aka your waist circumference has way more bearing on your long-term risk factors for chronic disease than your weight, but also even from an aesthetic perspective, they've
Hmm.
studied what people think is quote unquote beautiful by showing people like silhouettes and figurines that are not quite human, but saying like, which blot do you think is more attractive? And
Hmm.
it's a smaller weight. Again, weight, it is not weight. It is a ratio of X
Correct.
to Y, and it's a symmetry measure. So again, you're even if all you care about is how you look, you're still better off just measuring your waist.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Well, Kathy, I feel like we could talk for hours and hours and hours, and I know that you are a very, very busy woman. So I will wrap us up here because otherwise I'm just going to keep going. But I did want to leave our listeners with a little more information on where they can learn more about you, what you're doing next. So I'll start with where they can learn more about you, and that is your website, which is livethesmartway.com. All sorts of great free books and awesome smiling videos of you they can see. But what are you doing next? Where you're doing all kinds of stuff.
Oh my gosh, I'm doing some really, really exciting things. I'm putting together a membership website for people because one of the things, so I travel all around the world and I give talks, just kind of like this interview, but more, a large crowd, and it's quite cool. And after I leave, everyone's, I want more, I want more. So I want to be able to share more of what I have to people. So I'm in the middle of creating a membership website right now, and starting up in September, I'm traveling the world, preaching the same thing. I say preaching. I just realized I said preaching because it really is. We need to start a movement of truth.
I love it. I love it. Well, Kathy, of course, we're all here rooting for you and supporting you. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help. And thank you so much for joining us. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Kathy. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's show as much as I did. And remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Talk with you soon.